I knew a little bit, and I'd been to court before. I'd been to family court. I had sole custody of Juliana for 10 years. So how every time I went to court with no lawyer, the judges were fair. They were like, oh, do you have any more evidence to show, miss? Sir, do you have more evidence? Okay, now we're gonna make a decision. Like, they would explain what they're doing. Grossman was just like so corrupt, like literally like a criminal sitting there in a robe. And after she did that day, I was so upset because at the end, like, it was terrible. And at the end, she issued those orders like the next day and stuff. So I had filed a judicial review complaint against her.
Mm-hmm.
And I filed a motion to recuse. And I did all this without knowing what I was doing. But the clerk's office said, oh, you can do this, you can do that. And, that stuff made her angry when I did that. Then she started to retaliate even more, where, they would put in a motion that was about child support and say that it was going to be, or a motion that was about custody, and they would schedule it to be heard in child support court. And I would try to call to the clerk's office and say, this is a custody motion. Why is it scheduled for the child support magistrate? And they'd be like, oh, you could file a motion for clarification. We can't give legal advice. So I'd file a motion for clarification, like, this is clearly a custody motion. I like to clarify if this was a mistake, blah, blah, or a case flow request. I tried everything they suggested. Grossman would say, oh, in light of the information in the motion, your motion is denied. Like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Everything I said in the motion is accurate. So it's like she tries to paint this picture so that if somebody in the public who doesn't have a legal background or knowledge or understanding tries to read this stuff, they're going to be like, oh, why would a court or judge put a lie? They don't put lies. They don't maliciously do that. At least that's what I thought. So, after that time that happened, I went home and I started like Googling her and doing like research on her. And I found disturbing information. And, you could just Google her name, Jane Kupson Grossman. I tell people all the time, it's not just my stuff that pops up. Many other people's things come up. There's foundations that have written articles about this lady. She has a history for taking children away from mothers and sometimes fathers. And 90% of the time, it's because sexual abuse gets brought up in court. And her then MO is to immediately order that the parent that is either sexually abusing or facilitating the abuse to happen in their home, that person gets custody transferred to them. And the person who reported it gets supervised visitation. And then if you want to get your kid back, you're not going to get them back because even the appellate court is protecting her. And somebody that I spoke to stated that they have already had, the FBI has been investigating for years now that she has ties to some, criminal organizations, and that because of her association with that she's protected on a high level. And I can tell you that, I've been fully transparent because these judges try to lie and paint a false narrative through their rulings and the things they choose to make public strategically. But like, I've been fully transparent by posting the full hearings on YouTube, like literally the full audio of the hearing, the transcripts, the court filings on Google Drive, everything. On all my social medias, I put links in my bio about it. And I've had 10 different accounts permanently banned between Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. Like, it's like I'm getting banned right and left and silenced and censored. And it's like, if what I was saying is false, why the slander campaign? Why the censorship? Why trying to silence me? And then when trying to silence me didn't work, they switched to trying to continue to put more and more false, fraudulent criminal charges against me to try to put me in jail or a mental institution, which I don't need to be in a mental institution. I'm not unstable. I'm able to do more than many people have done. And I never neglected or abused my kids. I never had issues with substance abuse. The police in DCF had no concerns about me whatsoever. But this one judge on her own decided to order in the middle of a hearing that immediately that the father would get custody transferred to him, when it had already been 4 years of her living full-time with me and her sister in a nice house in the suburbs. And he was living in a dangerous inner city that's got like 500 sex offenders in a 5-mile radius.